Hi everybody, hope that you're doing fine. This is Yair from Rain the Dog, and today we will study about Page Object Model, especially when using Selenium. Let's start with the agenda for the day. We'll study what is the Page Object Model, what are the advantages of it, how to implement it in our code. Also, we'll study what is Page Factory and the disadvantages of using the Page Object Model. Before we'll start with the terms, I want to present to you our flow for today. Our project for today will be Gmail. First, we will need to map the Gmail welcome page, that here we can create an account or sign in. We'll also study how to automate the Gmail sign-in page, and also we'll study the account creation page of Gmail. So let's get started. First, we need to ask, what is the Page Object Model? The Page Object Model is a design pattern mainly used in automated testing. Its main philosophy is to represent each web page as a standalone class. The classes will serve as a repository for the web UI elements. For instance, what I'm trying to say that if we'll go back to our browser, here in this page, I could map the elements by right-clicking on it, inspecting the element, and then I could copy all of these properties to my test. For instance, let's build a very simple test just to demonstrate that. We'll head over to IntelliJ and we'll start a new project. Make sure that you choose Maven. If you don't know how to do it and you don't understand why we're using Maven for Selenium, please refer to our video Selenium for Beginners. There you would be able to find a profound explanation of how to use Maven. Let's call it Page Object Model Example. Let's finish. And yes. Here we have our project. I will quickly add the dependency. Let's start by creating the Java class, an example Java class. Let's call it Gmail example. Let's build our test with TestNG. See, the test annotation is unknown, so I will add TestNG to my class path because it's already installed. Okay, and we'll call it simple Gmail account, create account test. Of course, it needs to be void. Let's map it out. Let's say that I want to navigate to this page, so I need to do WebDriver driver equals, it does not recognize my WebDriver, so let's import it. We need to add the Maven dependency. So here we'll search for an artifact. Again, I encourage you to refer to our Selenium for Beginners. If you don't understand what I'm doing here, need to pause and go back to see this video, and then believe me, you'll be a master of it. Let's search for Selenium. Okay, now we have Selenium. We'll install this one, we'll add the Maven dependency, we'll import the changes. If we'll go back to the POM XML file, you could see that we have both TestNG and Selenium installed already. Okay, so here I can import the WebDriver. You see the import here. And we'll say new Chrome driver. Now I can do driver.get, and I could paste the Gmail login page. Now let's say I want to click this button. So I'll right click on it, and then I can identify. As you can see here, I have several classes. Let's identify it by the link text. Let's copy this one, and we'll say web element, click on create account button, and we'll say driver find element by link text. Then let's paste this link text. Okay, the paste wasn't successful. Let's just write it down. Create an account. Let's see if it's all in lowercase. Create an account, yes. And then I can just click on it. Let's run this one and to see if everything is working. And you could see here that I've succeeded in clicking this button. Then I got this one. By the way, it is in Hebrew because I'm located in Israel, and that's why Google is automatically translating the page for me. But you saw that everything was running properly. We've clicked the button, and then we succeeded in getting here. So what is wrong with this test? Let's say I have another test referring to this web page, and also another test which want to click this button. Okay, let's say that this test only needs to make sure that the button was clicked and we arrived to this Google welcome page. Okay, another test might be to click on create an account and then to continue filling the form. If I will need to redo that, I will need to remap it again, all over again. Also, I'm confusing between the infrastructure, which should be, it's not present here because my infrastructure is the test and the test is the infrastructure. So it's never a good practice for that. I'm a bit ahead of my time. I want to show you that in the slides. But before, I just want you guys to understand something really simple. It is better to make this separation between the test level and the infrastructure level. Because whenever I will need to reuse this button, I will need to recall it. One way would be to externalize all of this element locator. Let's understand how to do that. Okay, so the page object model is we said it's a design pattern mainly used in automated testing. So what is our main philosophy for the day? We need to represent each of the web page as a standalone class. The class will serve as a repository for the web UI elements. Sounds fairly simple, yeah? Why would we use this page object model? First, as I said before, it will reduce the code duplication. If I will want to reuse this code, I will have one method that will identify the element for me. Also, it helps to keep our project clean and organized. It's more maintainable. Also, let's say that I have a pattern of a previous project that I already made, and it's using the page object model design pattern. I can just copy that for a new project without any serious modification. It will be very unified. Also, think about it. Our code will be much more appealing, much more nice looking, and between us, who doesn't really want some nice looking code? So let's start by designing our project. Okay, So let's go back. We have this as the main page. This page, we would be able to call it create an account page, okay? Then, if we'll click on sign in, we have the sign in page as well. Also, if we will click on the create account, we have the create account form page. So already we have 3 pages, 1, 2, and 3. There might be also a middle ground page, which would not happen here because every time we start Chrome driver with Selenium, we have a fresh instance of Gmail. So nothing would be saved. But there is also a middle page between, let's say that there is an account already signed in and I want to sign in again. Gmail will present the choose your account page. So let's say we have 4 pages and let's start planning our project. Our first rule, as I said before, would be to separate the pages and the tests. Let's draw our first page. Let's call it Gmail Welcome Page. Our second page would be Create Account Page or Account Creation Form Page. Each name that you feel is suitable, it's enough here. Just make sure that you give your pages some meaningful names. Let's also say that we'll have the sign in page and maybe we won't implement it here, but let's say that we'll just create a placeholder for that, which will be called choose account page. This is for the special scenario that I'm already logged into Gmail and I want to switch between the accounts. Now let's say that in the Gmail welcome page I will need to have several methods. It might be much more complicated page. For instance, maybe I will want to have the language picker method that can receive parameters and to choose the language, and I could have many other methods. For our purposes, let's say that we'll create 2 methods. First, that we'll click on the sign in button, and the second one that we'll click on the create account button. Then we will have the create an account page. Let's say that we want to click on the create account title, and let's say that we want a method to fill in all the form for us. And also we'll need a method to click on our next button. On the sign in page, let's say that I want to have a method that can fill the username field and also a method for the next button. In the choose an account page, we want to have the account lists, a method that will return all the accounts that are listed in this page, and also a method that will enable us to choose an account or another account. So let's say that's it for the Gmail 4 pages that we just discussed about. Let's put it on the most left hand side and let's give it the title Pages. Now we need to write down our tests. We will have a separate test class for each of the pages. Let's say that we want to have tests for the Gmail welcome page. We'll create the test for the account page as well. And let's say we'll also create the sign-in test page. Under the Gmail welcome test, we will have the navigation tests. we'll have the text validation test. Under account creation, the first test will be for a valid account creation, and the second one will be for invalid account creation, that we would expect to see an error message for that. Also, for the sign-in tests, we'll have one test for a valid username, and also the second one will be for an invalid username. So we're going to create 4 classes and 8 tests in total. I'm sorry, it's 6 tests, because for now we will skip the choose account page, because it will take some time we need to first log into Gmail and to create another account, and then to try to log in with a second account as well. So I we'll be presenting that. We'll have it just as a placeholder, so you will be able to see how a full project looks like. So now, after that we planned our project structure, we need to go to implementation. So our rules of thumb would be, each page would be presented by a class. This is the object. Each class will serve as an interface for the web page. Also, the page object will contain the representation of the page. The methods on the web page's object would be separated from the test, and also any validation that we have should be performed at the test level only. So let's head back to our project. This was nice, but let's transform this example to a page. Let's start by creating our classes. Let's create a new package. We'll call it pages, and we'll create a new package as well. We'll call it tests. Now we'll create a new Java class. We'll call it Gmail welcome page. We'll create another class. We'll call it create account page. We'll create another page. We'll call it sign in page. Then we'll create another class. We'll call it choose account page. And under test, we'll create all of the test classes. The first one would be Gmail welcome tests. We'll have account creation tests. And we'll have the sign in tests. Great. So we have everything that we need. Now we need to fill it with content. So let's start with the choose account page. If we'll go back to the example that we had, the Gmail example, we had both. Let's copy everything here. Let's copy this identifier. Let's copy the locator. So here we'll declare a private variable. We'll call it by. It's from the type by. Of course, we need to import it. It's by of Selenium. We'll call it create account button, and it will be equals to by link text create an account. Now let's say that we want to create a method which will click this button. We'll call it public void click on create account. The only thing that we need to do is to say driver. Okay, I forgot a very important thing. First, we also need to have a constructor. Let's start by creating the constructor for this class. And this constructor will receive as a parameter the web driver. Let's declare a private web driver as a class member, and we can assign the value of the web driver from the constructor. So we'll say this driver equals driver. So whenever we'll create an instance of this class, we'll assign the value of the driver to the member of the class. Now we can say driver find element by, we don't need to say by what, because we have the create an account button. By the way, I missed the convention, so it's camel letters. It should be like this one. And then I could say find element, the create account button, which is this by, and I could just click on it. So now, let's say that our test is clicking this button, and the only thing it needs to make sure that is that we have, let's start by running it, and then we'll add the assertion. So let's go to account creation. Our first test would be click on public void click on create account. I have too many C's. Okay, now we will start by web driver equals new Chrome driver. Then I start by initializing. I made a mistake. All of this, the choose an account page, is not the correct page. I will need to go to create an account page. So let's copy all of this data from here. Let's delete all of this. This is just a placeholder for the choose account page. And let's paste it here. The only thing that we'll need to do is to change the constructor's name to match the one of the class. Okay. Now we'll go back to our test. We'll say create account page, new create account page with this web driver. Now we would be able to create an account. First we need to navigate, by the way, driver get. We need to navigate to this URL, and then we could say create an account page, click on create account. Here we don't validate anything yet, but let's start by running this test. Okay, as you can see, this test has passed. How can we validate that the click was successful? First, you could see that whenever I'm clicking here, a new tab is being opened. A new tab that you probably can read because it's in Hebrew, but you can believe me that a new tab was opened again. So let's close those tabs. We can have several validations. We'll start with the most simple one. Let's say that before we click, I want to see how many window handles I have. If I have only one tab, I will have only one window handle. If I have more than one tab, I will have several window handles. So let's start by window handles before, which will driver get window handles dot size. So before I would have a certain number. Let's print it out so we would be able to understand. Window handles before and after click, let's do the same. Int window handles after, which will be equal to driver get window handles dot size. And then let's print how many I have after. Okay, let's run it now and try to understand what happened. Okay, window handles before was 1. After click, a new tab was open. Now we have 2. So I know it's not the best validation in the world but for our purposes, it will be more than sufficient. So let's assert. We'll say assert true that the window handle after is bigger than the window handles before. If not, let's say the button wasn't clicked properly. So let's right click it . And our test passed. It means that this assertion has passed. One thing that I want to do before we continue, as you can see here, I'm referring to the driver every time. So maybe it's a good practice to have some infra class. So let's create a new package. We'll call it infra. This one is not related to Page Object Model. You should include any infra class. You should include an infra class in any of your projects. So let's call it our base page. And this base page would receive private web driver driver, and then we could say this driver equals driver. This syntax is very similar to the account creation page. And why is that? We'll see in a second. Let's say that the method that is returning the size of the window handles can be externalized. So let's copy this line of code. And let's say that we will create a method which will public int get window handles number. It will return this value. So there is no meaning to create an instance of base page. First, so we need to say this class is an abstract class because we won't create any instance of it. What can we do? Let's say that all of the pages now will inherit those methods because whenever we have some general methods such as get window handles or whatever, we could include it here. It's not related to a certain web page. So here we'll say that this one, create an account page, will extend the base page. There is no default constructor. Why is that? Let's try to understand what can we do. Okay. Yeah. It just asks from us to pass the parameter of this WebDriver before we continue. So now what can we do? Let's go back to our test. We could refer to the create an account page and we could get the window handles number. Now we don't need to worry about how to implement, and if we don't remember the syntax, we just need to refer to this specific place. And if we already externalize everything, maybe also the navigation could be in a different place. For instance, let's create a method which will call it navigate to web page. This method will receive the URL, and the only thing it will do, it will click driver.get to the URL. Now our test could be more clean. We could take this URL, we could refer to the create an account page, we could navigate to the web page, and which web page would we want to navigate? Let's say that we'll have a private string here, account creation URL, and the value of it would be this one. Now we would be able to navigate there. So here we are not referring to the WebDriver at all, just creating that, and also we can create that in a before method or before class. If you don't understand how to use the annotations, please refer to our lecture. It's on lecture number 3 in the Selenium for Beginners tutorial. But for now we will use it here. So in our test, we only refer to the create an account page. We navigate through this one. We are getting the window handles before, we're getting the window handles after, and then we are asserting that we already have a fully functional Selenium project. Let's run it now. So as you can see, the test was passed with all the changes that we've made. So we have now our infra package, which includes the base page. We have the pages package, and we have the test packages. So logically, all of the test components are divided to a very comprehensible list of packages. Okay guys, just a small correction. Before we've implemented all of the methods in the create an account page, I've moved everything to the Gmail welcome page, since this is the proper location. Also to the Gmail welcome test and not in the account creation. Now we'll start creating our create an account page. This was a mistake that I've made previously. So first, before we start, I want to go over a new subject. Page Factory is a special ability of Page Object Model that we can use to instantiate a web page elements automatically. It will reduce our clutter and it will make our code look more comprehensible. It also supports caching and it also supports lazy loading that maybe we'll overview it later on. So how do we use that? How do we implement that? Let's go back to our code. We want to implement it here in the create an account page. Okay, the create an account page should be this page. We need to map the page. First, let's right click here on the first name. And you can see here that the first name has an ID and also it has a name. Name equals first name or ID. I can choose either one of them. Let's start by using the name. First, we need to extend it to its parent. Now we need also to implement the constructor. This one is the same as we did here with the Gmail welcome page. Here you see it's extending the base page. We also need to declare our private web driver, and here we will assign the value to the web driver. Okay, so now it's ready. How do we use the page factory? We'll start by using the annotation find by, and in this case we will find by name. The name equals first name, and because it's automatically locating the element, we already receive in return a web element. So the web element will be the first element field, and here we have the first element. Let's go back to the page. If I right click here, you can see that we have the last name and the username, password, and the confirm password, and etc. Also, we will need to map the next button. The next button has an ID which is called account details next. So let's identify all the elements. Okay, now that we mapped all the elements, we need to initialize them. So the initialization of the page factory can be done in several ways. Here I think the best way to initialize it will be with the constructor. So inside the constructor we will call the page factory, we'll say init element with our web driver, and also we'll pass this instance. If you initialize the element outside of this class, you will need to call the class which is called create an account page dot class. But since we are here, we'll use this. Okay, so this is the initialization, which means that we have all of those elements already initialized whenever we'll create a new instance of create an account page. Now let's create the methods that will insert all of the data. We'll start by creating a method that we can call fill first name. Now this method will receive a parameter which will be the first name, and the only thing that we need to do is to call our parameter first name field, and we need to send keys with the first name as a parameter. Now we need to do the same for all of the other fields, but before we'll do that, instead of just going all over again to the send keys, let's say that in the future I will want to implement something that will also return a value after the send keys, such as if the action was correct or not. So I think the best practice would be to create a private method. We'll call it fill field. It will receive the web element, which will be our field, and it will receive a string which will be the value. Now the only thing that we need to do is field send keys value. Now all of the methods can call this field method. So let's call it this field. The name of the field is the first element field. Why is it called first element? It should be first name field. Yeah. So let's change it. First name field and the first name. Okay, now we need to do the same for all of the other fields. I will just remind you, we have the first, the last, the username, the password, and the confirm. Great. Now we have everything ready. We still need to click the next button. Since we already identify it, you see it's still grayed out because we haven't used it yet. We can create a new method which we'll call click on next button. Okay, and now we'll only call next button dot click. That's it. We can see that everything now is ready and we can start creating our test. So let's go back to the account creation test and we'll annotate it. Let's call our test public void create valid account test, because we also can create an invalid account. Let's indent it a bit. Yes, now it looks better. We'll need to start with WebDriver. Equals new Chrome driver. Then we'll need to initialize the create an account page with our WebDriver. Just a reminder, whenever we'll call this constructor, it will create the base page element. It will also create the page factory with the initialization of the elements. Okay, now we need to navigate. So we'll say create an account page, navigate to web page. And with which web page do we need to navigate? Let's go back. I'll copy this one. Probably the proper flow would be to navigate to the welcome page, to click on create an account, and then, as you can see, a new tab is being opened. Since we won't implement the method of switching between tabs in this specific lecture, you are more than welcome to check out our video how to switch between tabs. For now, this will be sufficient for us. We'll just copy the URL. Let's declare it here. Yes, now this is the URL. We'll navigate to this one. Now we need to fill all of the fields. Let's start with the first name. It will be Yair. The second, let's fill last name from Rain the dog. Fill username, we'll call it Yair from Rain the dog. Now we need to create a password. Fill password. Let's say that the password would be this one. And the last one, we need to fill the confirm password, which will be the same one. And in the end, we need to click on the next button. So now our test will fill all of the fields. It will click the next button and let's see what happens. I'll right click on it and run it. Okay, you see we have an error message which said please choose a stronger password. Try a mix of letters, numbers and symbols. So let's go back. Let's add some numbers and symbols. 235 exclamation mark. I hope that this one will be sufficient. We'll right click on it and run it. Let's see now. Yes, we fill all the fields. Now we've reached to the next page, which is the verify your phone number. So the only thing that we missed in our test is to have an assertion for that. So before we start, let's create an invalid test, okay? So let's copy the title, just let's change it to be invalid. Create invalid account test. So let's say that we are expecting to see the same message that we've seen. What would happen if we'll go back? Let's say I don't fill any of the fields. Next. In order to have a validation, you can see that whenever I click the next button, I'm still in the same page. You see? So let's right click on this one. And you can see we have the ID of the heading text. So let's say that all of our tests, the only thing that our test will do is to have the same one. It will be WebDriver driver equals new Chrome driver. Also will create an account page. Create account page equals new create account page with the driver, and we'll navigate to the same place. By the way, think about it, that we keep doing that all over again. That's the best place to use TestNG before and after methods. If you don't know about it, you should check out our lecture, our series of lectures, Selenium for Beginners. The third one deals with TestNG and annotations. So for here, we'll just copy the same code. And now, the only thing that we need to do is to click the next button. Now let's identify this title, okay? Let's identify it. But since it's something that will happen after I'll click a button, we won't find it by the page factory. We'll do it in the more traditional way that we've done before. We'll say by, we'll call it main page title equals by ID, and this is the ID that I've copied. Now we need to create a method. We'll call it public boolean validate page title string expected title. Now we need to do, we'll driver find element by, we'll have the page title, main page title, dot get text. Now the only thing that we need to do is to assign it to a proper variable. Actual title equals this one, and now we need to return if the actual title equals the expected title. So now whenever we'll call this method, let's say that we expected this one to be create your Google account. If we click next and we stayed here, we probably had some error. So this is the invalid one. It can be for each one of the fields. As you've seen before, if I click the wrong password, if my password wasn't up to the preconditions of Google, so I wasn't able to go forward. So now we'll validate this one. Of course, we can do some validation about all of the error fields and everything. We're looking for a more simple validation now. So let's go back to our test. And now let's declare a variable which we'll call Boolean result. And this one we'll call the create an account page, validate page title, and let's copy this text. Let's hope that everything is correct, and we'll assert the result. Let's say page title wasn't as expected. Okay, so here I'm navigating, I'm clicking the next button. I'm trying to validate the title to see if I stayed in the same page. So let's run this test. And the test was passed because we validated. So we have already two tests. Now we need to validate this one. How do we validate this one? Here we have the title, the verify your phone number. Let's say that we want to validate the title. So you see the heading text is the same ID. We can create a new object in our page object model just for this page, but for simplicity we'll include it in the same page. So here you can see that it's the same one as the title on the previous page. So now we can recognize, we can reuse this method, the validate page title. The only thing is, okay, so let's try to add the same validation here. Let's copy this one. But now our validation would be different. Now our validation will be verify your phone number. So after we create all of these, let's say we are reaching this line number 26, we're hoping that this will be the title. We can leave this /n aside. Let's right click it and run it. So it's already failed. You know why? Because as you saw, it took some time to get to this page. We needed to wait for this. So the title was probably the title from previous. We can see here we have an assertion error, page title wasn't as expected. So what can we do? We can maybe, the worst practice that we can do is to have the thread.slip, to have some, let's say, 5 seconds of slip. Now we can run it to see if it's working. This is a very bad practice to add hard-coded slip. As you can see here, the test has passed because we waited for 5 seconds and then we tried to validate the title. And now the title was as expected. What can we do in order to not use a hard-coded slip, because it's a very bad practice? I encourage you to see one of our lectures about wait for element. This is a spatial variation of wait for element that was created by us, by Rain the dog. So I will take this method and we'll do some variation to it. So I do encourage you to watch the video, but for now, I will have my base page. Also, I've already imported a class that's called utils. Utils also, you can find it in the same lecture that I've talked about. And let's say that we created a method that is called waitForElementText. This method is a bit more sophisticated because I also added the contained. Let's say we're waiting for a text to be contained, not even the full text. So if I would use this method with the contained, I could say that also verify your would be valid as well. But I want to do something a bit different. So let's overview this method. This method will try to find the text that we're waiting for unless a certain timeout will pass. So it will always get the element, it will try to get the actual text, it will catch an exception that might occur. You can try it out without the exception. You would see that the stale element reference exception is occurring from time to time. And in the end, if it will find the text and the text won't be empty, it will check, do we need to contain it or to equal it? Then it will return the value of is found. So this is the method. If you don't understand the syntax, please check out this lecture that is talking about waitForElement. So let's do that here. So let's say that instead of finding the element and getting the text, we can refer to our method. So let's call super, which is waitForElementText. We'll pass the same by the main page title. We'll pass a boolean. Do we need it contained? No, we don't need it contained. It's okay to have it equals. And the timeout. Let's say that we are not willing to wait more than 5 seconds. Now, this is the result that we can return. We don't need all of this. I missed something here. Oh yeah, the text itself. Expected title. Yes. So here the validation is doing the wait for us. It's waiting for the element text, not more than 5 seconds. And also, let's see if it's working now. The test has passed. What happened here again? We have sent the validate page title, which was the verify your phone number. So our method was still here on this page and the title was this one. And then it was in some kind of limbo because it was between the pages, and until we reached the next page, which the title was verify your phone number. And this title matched this one, the one that we expected it. So we already have 2 tests. So what do you think about our project so far? We have the account creation tests. We have the Gmail welcome page. We also have the Gmail welcome test. We're working according to the plan. So we can also complete all the other tests. So now we need to complete the sign in page. I will just start it. I won't complete this page because I want to encourage you to check out our series of lectures for Selenium for Beginners, which deals specifically with Gmail login. So for now, I will just start this for you guys so you can complete it by yourselves. And private WebDriver driver, and this driver equals try. Okay, so in the sign in page, just for you guys to see, sign in instead, you see we have this email or phone field. This one has an ID, the identifier ID. So we need to navigate to this page, and then we need to identify this one and also the next button. The next button is you see, it has an ID, identifier next, which is the same one as we've seen before. So let's start it. let's do find by ID equals identifier ID. We'll call it user name field, and it's from the type web element. So this one is called identifier next. We'll do the same, find by ID equals identifier next web element next button. And we need to create the methods for public void insert username string username, and we can call username field dot send keys with the username, and we can also have the method for public void click next button. Next button dot click. Now we can create the test. We can insert the username, we can click the next button, we can insert the password similarly, and we'll have the complete project. So here we have a complete Gmail sign-in project with tests and pages according to the, and also of course the infra, an infra package with base page that have some methods that are common for all of the other classes. So this just looks like a project that we can already implement our automation code here. This is a very good infrastructure. It's much better than to have everything hard-coded as it was in our first example. So some of the disadvantages of using the page object model is, first, it has no exception handling. If you have noticed in the wait for element text method that I've just implemented, we tried and catched several exceptions, such as the stale element exception. So if we're trying to identify elements automatically, sometimes we'll get an exception. In my philosophy, a test should only fail on assertion, never on exceptions. On exceptions, they are unexpected. The endpoint can be infinite. Also, most of the Selenium code is not returning a value. That's why a good practice would be to wrap everything, such as we demonstrate in the videos that I referred you guys to see. Also, using Page Factory could try to locate elements that we don't really need in the test, because we initialize all of the elements and we just store some unnecessary values in the memory. Also, I find it a little bit tiresome that some features in the app are cross-page. Think about an app that have a search bar that goes with you. In any location you can use the search bar. So it won't be good to include the search bar in a certain page because we need to re-implement all of the code. So sometimes if we bind ourselves to a single page endpoint, our project will have a lot of like small pages. It maybe increase the clutter, and maybe our code won't be as beautiful as we wanted. So thank you guys for watching. That will be all for today. If you have any question, please do it in the comment section down below. If you like this video, please give us the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do it. We're planning to release a new video at least once a week, even twice a week, so you will be up to date with all the videos that we release. And until next time, I'm Yair from Rain the Dog. Thank you for watching.